The 20s, a time of innovation, invention, and whatever that thing is. It kind of looks like a gyroscope. But what's the 20s without the influence of music? Now, prior to the 20s, the entertainment industry was very limited. There were newspapers, books, all the boring stuff like being outside, and a bunch of other stuff that actually didn't involve screens. So this guy named Thomas Edison started the very early version of a talking movie. This technology we don't even think about. You're listening to a talking video right now, but back then they would just be like 5 seconds of screen and then like 5 seconds of text, whatever. Really cool. Technology we don't even think about, but back then it was a technological advancement and a huge accomplishment of the time. But this wasn't the only invention that led to music exploding in the 20s. The movies were not the only thing invented in the 20s as well. There were
the widespread adoption of home radio, the development of the lie detector, the invention of the Band-Aid, the early steps of space exploration with the first liquid fueled rocket, alongside advances like electric blenders, television demonstrations, and efficient vacuum cleaners.
Just to name a few.
I am.
What does this have to do with the explosion of music? Well, if you heard in the list of inventions, if you were paying attention, you probably heard me say that the widespread adoption of the radio was something that was huge in the 20s.
The widespread adoption of home radio.
The widespread adoption of home radio.
This wasn't a normal radio like one you would find in the car, like a big old box one you would find in a person's house. It was like maybe like a yay high kind of radio. You know what I'm saying? Like a thing you just carry. The home radio was invented in actually 1920, so boom, right off the bat, it was just invention after invention, and quickly became popular throughout America. So from California to Maine, musicians quickly jumped into their studios and started cranking out all their records because they knew if we're gonna get famous and stuff, we need to start putting music out on the radios for people to listen. But due to rock and roll and and a bunch of other genres not existing yet, jazz and the blues were usually at the top of everyone's playlist. So it's a normal thing that people would listen to. But only one artist can come out on top. Normally, that's how it works. And this person was none other than Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong was the epitome of music, a legendary jazz artist. This is not the only artist of the time that were popular. Okay, this is gonna be really fast. This is gonna be
Bing Crosby, Bessie Smith, Rudy Valley, Ethel Waters, Helen Morgan, Annette Hanshaw, Russ Columbo, Lee Morrison.
A bunch of others.
Widely jazz and blues based. Those were those artists. But the home radio was not the only place that people can listen to music. It was very popular, but it was not the only place. Built in 1914, so a little before the 20s, obviously, movie palaces were built to replace rinky-dink Nickelodeons. So the movie palaces were huge, and they would have music concerts, they would have movies there, they would have anything sound, because sound was the new thing in the 20s. These movie palaces were places where, for some people, the first time ever hearing talking movies, hearing music, because music was very like once a year, Christmas time kind of thing. If you knew a person who played the piano or the guitar, that's where you hear music. But it wasn't like widespread like we know it today. And it was actually very cheap, for a whole 5 cents. But some people don't like going out and spending money and having to get up out of their chair, out of their house. It's just so much work. So people started to say this, and Thomas Edison was listening. So Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. The phonograph was an early adaptation of the record player, and later the record player would be invented. So instead of vinyl, the phonograph would use wax, and it would be like a record player, but a cylinder instead of a disc. And later the vinyl record player would get really popular, but that's not in the 20s, so it doesn't matter. Music has become a huge part of our modern culture, and even there are entire companies based on improving how we listen to music altogether, and all this stuff is pretty crazy. So if you want to hear more about it, like and subscribe, and watch another video, guys.